Okay, so hello everyone. I'm actually very excited to be here, and it's an honor to be able to share my passion with you and some of the insights from an industry perspective on the accessibility of nuclear medicine in Africa. My name is Samantha du Plessis. I'm a radiopharmacist. I work as a program manager at NTP radioisotopes. And the topic of my presentation, as you'll see at the top, is the radiopharmaceutical supply into Africa and industry perspective. So the main reason I think for the meeting today, or at least from my side, is so that we can ensure that we share the critical role that nuclear medicine plays in society, or can play in society, in terms of diagnosis, staging, and then also therapy of cancers, but also many other drugs or many other diseases, as you've seen now as well. I think there are many challenges, but to try and highlight the top 5, if I can put it that way, from a supplier's perspective, to say what are the barriers for us to actually make radiopharmaceuticals accessible into Africa. I'll start with logistics, with regulatory, and then we'll move through to logistics, resources, price, and then finally awareness as well. So on regulatory, guidelines around handling, usage, and even registration of radiopharmaceuticals are not very well defined, and that's for South Africa as well as most African countries. Our products are extremely unique, and they have unique requirements that go with it that don't always follow the same principles as conventional pharmaceuticals would. Many of you have heard of the Zazibona program, and that was the initiative which was implemented to promote the accessibility of pharmaceuticals across the borders of our neighboring countries of South Africa. So that initiative is wonderful, but it hasn't really catered for radiopharmaceuticals specifically, and it also doesn't extend to the rest of Africa either. So that's something that I think we can work towards and engage with them maybe a little bit more. The last point in the regulations, so we can go on about the regulations, and I've put a few things in there like named patients and just how they actually get approval. But I think lack of knowledge is something that I've picked up speaking to some of the nuclear medicine physicians in Kenya and Nigeria, is that not even the regulators always know what to do with our products, how to handle them. And I think from a regulator's perspective, you don't know, then there's a big reluctance to actually permit the use or even importation thereof. So the next point I would like to discuss is logistics. So logistics has almost that stick in the mud, that just as you think, okay, we've sorted out the regulatory, we've got a pricing that's right, we've negotiated with everyone, there are flights, all those things, then you get going, and at the last minute, either your cargo gets offloaded, or there's a flight delay, or there's an additional stopover that you weren't aware of. So I think in the nature of our products, with their extremely short shelf life, basically, it's really hard, where if we produce on a Thursday, as an example, to dispatch on a Friday, and if you don't get your product by the Sunday for the Monday's usage, it's almost too late. There's no point in receiving it on a Wednesday even, because the calibration is for Friday and you've already lost so much activity. So flight delays is really, really a massive problem for the African shipment or accessibility. So there's also very limited flights or direct flights into Africa, and those that there are can't necessarily handle radioactive goods or radioactive cargoes. So there's an index called the transport index, which is the maximum amount of activity that they would allow it, or the TI is the amount of activity that's projected from your goods, your parcel. So they only allow a certain amount per flight, especially if it's passenger flights. And most of them, even if there are direct flights, I think there was one recently with Egypt Air, which they allowed a TI of 2. So 2 is not even a full generator. It's maybe a baby generator that can't really service a hospital even. So those kind of things are challenges for us, and we need to engage more with the airlines to explain to them that we really need to get these products into Africa. So there are flight options like Emirates as an example, but they go via Dubai, and the traffic in Dubai is quite high. So the stopovers and the connection flights back into Africa are quite long sometimes, and also costly, obviously. So I think that this is one of the hurdles that's the largest for us to overcome. It almost feels that if the logistics is sorted, then we can carry on. The geographical distribution, then once the product has now landed in the big mother city, you don't need to actually get it to the hospital. So the transport, the local transport infrastructure, almost if I can call it that, you can't just load it into your back, in the back of your car. There's obviously regulations around what cargo you can carry, and there's certain safety precautions and things like that. And there's very low transport infrastructure in the African countries. So that's a problem as well. The next, I wanted to move to resources. Now, resources is quite widespread. And I think there are various resource constraints that could prevent us from really entering the market with nuclear medicine. Without adequate facilities, the right equipment or equipment that's been maintained, without doctors and pharmacists and radiographers, or even product, if you can't get the product there, it's really hard to make these products available on a reliable basis. So there's a lot of medical tourism outside of Africa where they literally say, look, I can maybe do this for you, but they ship them to Morocco and Italy and all those countries for therapy. And also to diagnose a patient is not always worth the trouble of getting if you want to do a cardiac scan, there are other modalities that they could use, which might be more expensive and more invasive, but sometimes the logistics is just a little bit easier. So there is an IA initiative, a new program that they've launched called Rays of Hope. We have been in contact with them slightly, but I really want to, I think their goal is to address all of these resource constraints, everything from funding to infrastructure to trying to overcome some of the logistic barriers and those kind of things. And I'd like to urge everyone that's here today to just be involved in somehow. We've offered to be involved from a technical perspective, from a product perspective, to just help them, even training, just to help them to make sure that accessibility across Africa can be increased. So my second last point is price, and obviously I'm a supplier, so it's hard to talk about price, but there are a few realities that we need to discuss. And I think it's complicated because the price of the product is only one part of the total price that the patient will pay, or that the facility will pay even. And I think the indirect costs, the flights, the transport, the road transport, those kind of things can be very expensive. So I spoke to the one doctor even mentioned that just to admit the patient and to get the product there far outweighs the cost of the pharmaceutical. So from a supplier's perspective, you can drop your price 100 Rand less or 1,000 Rand less, but to actually get the product to the customer in the end is where, and there's so many additional costs, that's something that we really need to work on collectively. Furthermore, there's medical insurance. Funding will always remain a problem. Who pays? Do they have money to pay? How do we actually get the universal health coverage to pay for these products? And I think that's where I think on a longer term, we need to, as a nuclear medicine society, we need to think about health technology assessments for our products. Something that's been quite foreign in our country for nuclear medicine. We don't necessarily do health economic studies and all those kind of things. which is something that we're going to have to do. Even for our own NHI, it's something that we're going to have to do to make sure that our products are covered by medical aid, are covered by the NHI, and going, etc. So the last part is definitely not the least, and I think it's very important, is awareness. So I have said it here that our Nuclear Medicine Society have been, I don't know, we keep a very low profile, and that's just like the best kept secret. And I'm not sure if it's because we have such a humble nature, or if we like keeping secrets, or if we are all introverts. But I strongly believe that it's our duty to become advocates and voices for nuclear medicine, and the benefits and the advantages of it. We need to make everyone, we need to make the patients, the politicians, the regulators, referring physicians, GPs even, and then obviously funders as well. We need to make them aware of the safety and the efficacy of these products, and sometimes even the superior therapeutic benefits that they have. So I think I'll just leave you with that as a challenge to say, please do get involved and play your part in making sure that nuclear medicine is known far and wide. Thank you very much, everyone.